watching this series has taught me so much. I've begun to realize how detailed and intricate that Pastor Price put into this series. I've never heard anyone talk about racism or teach on racism to this degree in this manner. And yes, this goes back some 30 years ago. But to see it again and to take in more of what I initially and what say you initially saw, being older now, and being older, you understand even more, hopefully. But to see him go into so much detail, I mean, it blows my mind. For him to put so much into it. I've never seen anyone do a series like this with this much comprehension in it, this much detail, and have a passion for it, because it directly affects all of us. And to break it down to the fact of as what you're about to see, going into the skin color, and like I said, being so detailed about it. I remember him saying that he's basically the only one that could do it, and it was not to be bragging. Wow. Like I said, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Check him out.
All right. I told you that even if you have no background in science of any kind, you will be able to understand their simple presentation. On pages 133 and 134, and I quote from the Answers book, "It is easy to think that since different groups of people have yellow skin, red skin, black skin, white skin, and brown skin, there must be many different pigments or colorings. The fact is, however, that there is only one skin color." Remember me telling you that? I said that a little bit before. There's only one skin color. You know what that color is? It's called melanin. This is a brownish pigment which we all have in special cells in our skin. If we produce only a little melanin, it means that we will be European white. If our skin produces a great deal of melanin, we will be a very deep black, and in between, of course, are all shades of brown. End of quote. The Answer book goes on to say, or the Answers book goes on to say, pages 135, 136, 137, 141, 142, 143, 146, and 147. I quote, "We also need to be aware that one is not born with a genetically fixed amount of melanin, but rather with a genetically fixed potential to produce a certain amount in response to sunlight. For example, if you are a Caucasian, you may have noticed that when your friends headed for the beach at the very beginning of summer, they may, if they spent all their time indoors during the winter, have all been more or less that same pale white. As the summer went on, however, some became more darker than others. Even very dark-skinned races are not born with such a skin color. It takes exposure. I can tell you this. Now, this is a really good example of this. My daughter, Angela. Put the camera on Angela. There you go. Now, obviously she's white, right? Isn't that the color? Isn't that the color on the screen? Is white? And that's Snow White? Oh no, she's not white, is she? Oh, she's jet black. No. She's a nice intermediate brown. Do you know that when this girl was born, this baby was born, she was the color that you were, very pink. She was I had to look at I said, hey, I thought I'd be the daddy. Hey, what's happening here? Yeah, she was the most beautiful pinkish white color when she came out of her mother's womb. Then as she has been exposed to sunlight, the melanin factories in her body have begun to produce the melanin based upon the genetic coding that came from mom and papa. A lot of you can remember, black folk have babies and they're just as light as they can be. And therefore, if you took those babies and kept them in an isolated situation where they never got any sunlight, the melanin factory would never be turned on. And it'd be that same color there that they were when they were born. But it's light that causes the melanin factories to produce. Now watch this now. I said it before. As the summer went on, however, some became much darker than others. Even very dark-skinned races are not born with such a skin color. It takes exposure to sunlight to switch on the melanin factories in the skin. In very dark-skinned people, the areas such as the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet, which are very rarely exposed to sunlight, generally stay much lighter than the rest of the body. Let's look at a few observations which can help us to explain how many different skin colors can arise in a short time. From here on, whenever we use such words as different colors, we are strictly speaking, referring to different shades of the one color. Okay? Now watch this. If a person from a very black race marries someone from a very white race, their offspring, called mulattoes, are mid-brown. It has long been known that if people of mulatto descent marry, their offspring may be virtually any color, ranging from very black to very white. Now, my wife's family is a perfect example of this, and many people know this, but a lot of people don't know this. Now, my wife's family was 13 children? 13 children. My wife's mother's grandfather was a white man. Now, my wife's mother was as fair as some of you white folks in here today. She is very light-skinned. Her husband, on the other hand, was black-skinned, very dark, very dark. They had 13 kids. 11 of the kids were just very slightly shades of medium brown. One kid was almost white and one almost black. I mean black. I mean, they call me black, just because, but I'm talking about dark, D-A-R-K-K, dark, black. One was very black, very dark, and one, in fact, your color. And then one was almost white, and all the rest of them, medium brown. All came from the same source. That's the reason why Adam and Eve could not have been white, because two white people cannot produce a brown. That's genetically untenable. But they want us to think that the first parents were white. Couldn't have been. Because if so, then there got to be another creation, because, honey, we came from somewhere. Huh? And you can't get black out of white. Huh? I mean, you can't get a black child out of two fair-skinned, fair complexion white people. You can't. It won't fly. Okay, let's go on. It has long been known that if people of mulatto descent marry, their offspring may be virtually any color, ranging from very black to very white. Understanding this gives us the clues we need for our overall question. So we must first look in a simple way at some of the basic facts of heredity. Each of us carries in our body, listen to this carefully now. Each of us carries in our body. See, when you went to school, when I went to school, and a little bit of biology and stuff that I had in class, it was very uninteresting. because I wasn't included in it. So I really didn't take any, I mean, it's not that it's an uninteresting subject matter, but if you don't have a vested interest in it sometimes, just kind of do what you got to do to pass the grade. But brother, I'm telling you, all this stuff about genetics and DNA and all this stuff that we're going to get into in a few moments, it's going to really be a real wonderful lesson for you now, because honey, we talking about us now. We talking about where we all came from and how we got here and why we are the way we are. It becomes extremely interesting. All right, now watch this. Each of us carries in our body information which describes us in the way a blueprint describes a finished building. It determines not only that we will be human beings rather than cabbages or crocodiles, but also whether we will have blue eyes, short nose, long legs, etc. When a male sperm fertilizes an egg, all the information that specifies how that person will be built, ignoring, of course, such superimposed factors as exercise, diet, things like that, is already present. Let me say that again. When a male sperm fertilizes an egg, all the information that specifies how that person will be built is already present. The human blueprint is written in a code or language convention which is carried on a very long chemical called DNA. The word gene means a small part of that information which carries the instructions for only one feature. In the fertilized egg, where does all its information, its genes, come from? Good question. One half has come from the father, carried by the sperm, and the other half from the mother, carried in the egg. Genes come in matching pairs. We know that skin color is governed by at least 2, possibly more, sets of genes. Let's call them, I'm ready for my demonstration, gentlemen. It's that we know that skin color is governed by at least 2, possibly more, sets of genes. Let's call them capital A. Line 1, highlight A for me. All right, you see the A? Capital, notice it's a capital A, that's important. And we'll call the other capital B. Would you highlight B on line 1, please? Thank you very much. All right, now, with the correspondingly, let me say it again now, we know that skin color is governed by at least 2, possibly more, sets of genes. Let's call them capital A, capital B. With the correspondingly more silent genes, line 2 if you please, small a and small b. There's a small b and there's a small a. You ought to write this down if you can, because this is very, very, very interesting. All right, now the small letters in this case code, C-O-D-E, code for a small amount of melanin. So, a very dark race. Now get this. This is important. This is really going to be very informational for you. A very dark race which, on intermarriage, kept producing only very dark offsprings would be, line 3 please, A, B, B. Remember that these things come in what? Pairs. Okay? So get it again now. So if a very dark race which on intermarriage kept producing only very dark offspring, then it would be A and B. Please go to line 4. The same situation for a very fair-skinned race would be small a and small b. Let's go to line 5. Now let's look at what combinations would result in a mulatto, the offspring of an A, capital A, B, and a small a and a small b union. Now remember, we're talking about the one that's coated, the dark skin, and if they kept intermarrying, their gene, the code would always be capital A, capital B, capital A, capital B. If you have a very little bit of melanin, then you would be small AA, small bb. Now let's put the dark and the light together. We get the capital AA, capital BB, and the AA, small BB. We would have, let's look at what combination would result in a mulatto, the offspring of an AA, a capital AA, BB, and AA, BB, small union. What would happen if two such mid-brown mulatto people were to marry? Surprisingly, we find that an entire range of color, from very white to very black, can result in only one generation. Beginning with this particular type of mid-brown parents. Those children born with, we're on line 6 now, AABB, who are pure black in the sense of consistently having no other types of offsprings, have no genes for lightness at all. If they were to marry and migrate to a place where their offspring could not intermarry with people of different colors, all their children will be black. A pure black line will result. Line 7, please. Those who are small AA, small BB, are white. If they marry other whites and migrate to a place where their offspring cannot marry other colors, a pure, in the same sense, white line will result. They have lost the genes which give them the ability to be black. Now, with that in mind, I said it before, but now with that in mind, you can go back and understand now why Adam and Eve could not have been white. Can't you see it? We're talking about genetics now. I'm not talking about the pastor, we're talking about genetics. They could not produce because they have no genes for it. They could only continue to produce white children, just like themselves. Just like the black could only produce black children, just like themselves. You have to have a combining or combination to do otherwise. Now, let's see, where was I now?
Yeah, 7. I wanted 7.
Did I get 8? I got 8. No, 7. Okay. Okay, let me say it again. If they marry other whites and migrate to a place where their offspring cannot marry other colors, a pure in the same sense, in other words, all white line will result. They have lost the genes which give them the ability to be black. That is, to produce a large amount of melanin. So you can see how it is easily possible, beginning with two, oh Lord, watch this now, with two middle brown parents to get not only all the colors, but also races with permanently different shades of coloring. So Adam and Eve had to be mid-brown. Not black and not white. Because only that combination of genes could produce all the varied colors from jet black to snow white. So when God, watch this now, when God created Adam and Eve, undoubtedly, He placed within them the genetic code for all the other colors. Because God is a spirit and He doesn't have a physical body, so He couldn't have given to Adam his own color code because he doesn't have a color, he's a spirit. So when He created Adam and Eve, He had to make them mid-brown and place within them the genetic coding to produce, as I said before, from jet black to snow white. That's the only possible genetic way that it could have possibly been done. Now, if you think that that's far-fetched, go back and read, you don't have to do it now, but go back and read the first chapter of Genesis, where it talks about that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And it talks about the fact that God made the fish of the sea and all that kind of stuff. Well, you'll notice that it says that God spoke to the dry land and said, let the earth bring forth fruit bearing seed after its kind. Now, how could the earth produce trees bearing fruit with seed in them if when God created the ground, he had not already planted the seeds in the ground? He would have to plant the seed. He couldn't just speak to the ground and tell it to bring forth unless there's something in there to bring forth. So when he created the ground, he put all the plant life in the ground and then commanded that plant life that was already there to come forth, just like he put the genetic code into Adam and Eve and told them to be fruitful and multiply, and we are the results.
Okay, to wrap this up, I want to go into what Pastor Price, said about when he used his daughter as an example. And that, that was a good point to make, because he said when she was born that she was just as pink, but then over a period of time, she's starting to darken up. I can relate to that. And I know many others can relate to that, being black. My youngest son, his name is Antoine. Now, when he was first born up as a child, him and his middle brother, Marcus, a lot of people thought they were twins. And especially their skin complexion was basically the same. But as Antoine got older, he also got much bigger, because he's like 6'6", weighs 240. But as he grew, his skin complexion got darker. Now, mind you, myself and my wife, we're somewhat of the same complexion. But Antoine, he more or less took on the complexion of my late mother-in-law. That's how black families run. I mean, I've got a cousin. Now, she's light-skinned. Her husband is lighter than her. All the rest of her, she had 2 daughters, two sons. The 2 daughters are light-skinned. One other son who is just deceased now, he was light-skinned. But then the other son, he's dark. He's dark-skinned. And you would figure, seeing as, especially the sisters, you see as light as they are, and then the brother being dark, and you're figuring, okay, how does this happen? But in black families, it happens. So whenever you see a situation where a kid might be light and the other two, the parents are dark skinned, don't think something's going on. Okay? Please don't let that be a first thought, because myself, when I was born, I was told I was very light, almost to the point that there was confusion going on, so to speak, and there were accusations thrown about. I'll leave it right there. But there was no truth to those accusations. But anyway, I'm glad he made those points. I'm glad he made those points, because it goes to show that we as a people were God's blueprint for the human race. Enough said.